to the July board meeting. I'm excited to be back in this room and not in Zoom. It's nice to see everybody, even though we're spread out and I can't see very many smiles, but I'm thankful you're all here and safe. So let's get this meeting started. If we want to stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we've all had the agenda for a while. Dr. Cleveland, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
There's a first by Mr. Hutchinson and a second by Mr. Emerson to approve tonight's agenda as submitted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You've also had the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes from last month's meeting? There is a first by Mrs. Creek, a second by Mr. Ramos to accept the minutes from June as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That would pass. Dr. Cleveland.
Thank you. It's my first opportunity to speak at the board meeting as the superintendent. So thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to it. Tonight, our first item that's under my section is a resolution for the suspension of district policy to align with emergency COVID-19 legislation and statutory rule waivers. The idea of having these waivers provides you the opportunity, should something come up to where there is an emergency, to make decisions or allow the administration to make decisions. One specific item that we've already been able to adjust through is the calendar, and you'll have that on tonight to discuss. However, we believe in our PPC and the representatives, and Ms. Law, I don't know if she was asleep or awake, but whenever she got the text message, she was on it. She and the PPC have done an excellent job of trying together and work with the administration to build a calendar. So that's just one of the waivers,
Okay.
but and how we're going to operate. So if you would like for me to read it, I'm happy to. If not, you all have read it. And
Does anyone on the board have any questions, concerns? Has everybody had an opportunity to look over it?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the resolution for flexibility during COVID-19.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Bell, a second by Mr. Hutchinson to approve the emergency COVID resolution as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. B is request the board to approve Jared Cleveland to be the ex officio for the district. It's necessary to have that in the minutes in order for us to be able to conduct the business that's needed, the financial business of the district, and me sign for you.
And is there any particular way that this needs to be said?
It can be as simply as you'd like to state it.
I make a motion that we name Jared Cleveland the ex officio for the district.
Second.
There's a first by Mrs. Creek, a second by Mr. Emerson to name Dr. Cleveland. I'm not going to say that correct.
Ex officio.
Ex officio?
Okay, I can't talk anyway. For the district, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes.
All right, thank you so much. You've all been able to see the Facebook announcements, and I've been able to communicate with you as well regarding our new administration in each of the buildings. But tonight, we'd like to honor Principal J. O'Kelly and some others as we'll go through. Alan Williams is not here that I can see, but Alan Williams is a longtime former employee that I'm sure all of you know or have known in the past. He's a former superintendent at Prairie Grove, and he's an absolutely outstanding individual, and it is so nice to have him return. The interesting story from the Facebook post and that Alan told us while we were in the interview is that he was originally named the principal of J.O. Kelly prior to Ms. Ford, and he had to turn it down at the end to go to Bologna as assistant superintendent. So we've got nothing but rave reviews about the hire. I think the administration at J.O. Kelly, current administration that's there, is ecstatic. Sarah Ford is happy because she now knows who's going to take over for her, and that's a big deal. So we just want to announce to the board Mr. Allen, or Dr. Alan Williams. Next week, we've had Dr. Mary Collins leave us from the ESL department as the director, and we have Miss Carrie Brado. She's a little under the weather at the moment. I don't see her in the room, but Carrie Brado has been named as the ESL department director, and she's been the assistant there for a while. She's also been an assistant principal and instructional facilitator in the district. She's an excellent educator and a real stellar person, so we're excited to have Miss Carrie Brado. Additionally, number E, or letter E, announced the assistant principal via DTSOI. You've been provided updates as far as our numbers, and I think you'll get some more tonight for our VIA program. The need for Dr. Shay Hopper to become a part-time administrator has been significant. She's done yeoman's work. She's an outstanding educator. She started a virtual program at Fayetteville and has brought a wealth of knowledge to Don Tyson School of Innovation, has served there as an instructional facilitator, and now she's still going to continue part-time in the role of instructional facilitator / teacher and assistant principal. So we're really, really excited to have her, and we thank you for the opportunity to add that 0.5 of FTE at Don Tyson as those numbers grow. Letter F, my computer just went off. Maybe it'll come back on. There we go. Announce the structure of the central office team. You all know the structure, but when Dr. Rollins resigned to go to NWTI, and I was named, it left a little bit of a hole in our team. We worked well together in order to redistribute our duties. Mr. Kelly Hayes, enter. Nice timing, Mr. Hayes. Not only is he going to continue with financial aspects of the district, but he's going to carry the name of deputy. We're excited about him. One of his great strengths is his level of conservatism. You know, as you know, he's very conservative, and so if for some reason that I'm not available, I know that his decision will probably be no, as long as it costs money. That's a joke, but
That's about right.
Anyway, we're so thankful for his past service and know that he's going to be excellent in this role. And he's also coordinating and buffering between the Director of Support Services and Transportation. So that is another responsibility of Mr. Hayes. Speaking of Jeremy White, I think there he is. Jeremy White, he has been elevated. I don't know if he's elevated or demoted. We haven't decided, to Director of Support Services, but he's going to be responsible for transportation and all of the maintenance and facilities as he's done in the past, and he's operated in a stellar manner. So we're excited to have him, along with his new assistant, Mr. Kevin Conkin. And you all probably remember Kevin. He drove us around on the school bus, took us to, I don't know, I believe it was Don Tyson School of Innovation and other places when you all traveled as a group on a school bus. So he's wonderful and has great history. He's been the president of the state, is it ASPMA? So he's done that, and so he's got a lot of connections, and he's a quality person, so we're happy about that. In regard to the central office team, you already know Ms. Fink. She's hit the ground running. In fact, she started her work well before she was official, but we're happy for Ms. Fink to work in pre-K through 7. Ms. Shannon Tisher also is still with us, thankfully. I see her on the other side. And of course, we have our wonderful Dr. Marcia Smith, who's retained the associate superintendent position and I'm not sure she slept. And you'll see some results of her excellent work and her team's work as we move forward this evening. So we're looking forward to what she has to present to you. Did I forget anyone, Dr. Smith? Miss Clay. Oh, Miss Clay. She's not here. She's out doing.
He's out there doing thermometer work.
Miss Clay, when I told you it left a hole when I became superintendent, there are portions of the work that I retained. Part of the work that I retained is remaining involved in the hiring of certified staff. I used to tell Dr. Rollins all the time when he would ask me, son, what would you do differently? How would you do it? So we would have these discussions over time. And I think it was part of him planting seeds with me and maybe preparing me. And I said, well, Dr. Rollins, I think there's a gap between the certified staff that we hire in the superintendent's office. And I was very open and transparent about it. And he said, well, there probably is, but how I feel that gap is you. Well, that makes a lot of sense. But since we don't have the ability at this particular moment to hire someone for that position, I'm going to retain that responsibility for our teaching staff. And Ms. Clay is going to assume the responsibility of the negative side of personnel, which means if there are any terminations or working through the COVID-19 issues right now with forms and helping people navigate that system and understanding the rules. And she is absolutely excellent in being able to take complicated issues and break it down and make it relatively simple for everyone. So she's going to take that responsibility, and I'm very thankful for that. Mr. Hayes, on the side of personnel, he's taking the classified role in doing the hiring, and he's already begun that process. So I'd like to thank Mr. Hayes publicly as well. So we've distributed those duties. We believe it'll bring a financial savings to you and the remainder of the district in the central office area. The way I understood from you is, and from our team, if there's going to be any kind of strain or efforts for efficiency, it doesn't need to be at the building level, it needs to be at the central office level, so we're working to do that. So hopefully over time you'll be very pleased in our effort. Yes, sir? Oh, well, I haven't gotten the elbow yet. So I must say, this isn't Cynthia. Cynthia is retired, and we are going to miss Cynthia, especially the antics and the fun that she brings to the office. I do believe that Ms. Smalling can bring a similar kind of antics, and I know she can, and she's certainly a professional. She's been with me for a long time, and she agreed happily, I think, right, to crawl up the stairs with me and go to the central office, superintendent's office. So she's been excellent, and I look forward to a long history of having Ms. Smalling. Anyone else? Thank you for that. I didn't want to have to pay for that later. Okay, G, we have our wonderful Dr. Davis here from Archer Learning Center. He'd like to make a presentation to you about a potential new logo and mascot for Archer.
Hello, how are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
It's good to see you all. I have a little presentation, and I really have to say Mr. Donnell has a little presentation. He actually created it. So, we have had a really exciting year at Archer. I mean, obviously opening the new building. This year we unveiled our alma mater, and we didn't get to give it all of the credence that it deserved because of the pandemic, but still that was super exciting. We had another year of record graduates, which maybe I should mention that because I don't know if we'll be able to keep doing that, but that was still very exciting. We've just done a lot of great things, and all of that has been focused on building school culture. And I think that has been very important. Melissa, if you'll go to the next slide, we have focused a lot on who we are and how do we bring people into that culture of Archer. It's been important, as we have talked about that one of the things that comes up over and over again is, well, what's our mascot? What is Archer? And yes, our students are Bulldogs and Wildcats and Phoenix, but some of our students have never attended those schools. And so they don't really identify with those at all, even though, yes, that represents who we are. And we've used the logo that's on your mask. We've used that at times to represent all of those high schools. We've also used that cursive script Archer that you've seen before, but never have we had a mascot. And so we continue to talk about that, and we continue to just discuss how do we build a culture where our students feel like they belong, or they feel unified, or just increase school spirit overall. And so this conversation started actually before I came to Archer, and I think it fizzled out. And then it started again this school year, and we talked to students, and we talked to teachers, and we talked to parents, and we really tried to pick something that everyone would be interested in. So I'm going to give you this, and you just pass those down. We would like to propose that Archer become the Archer Aviators. And so you'll see on in your packet, and then also on the screen, this is the proposed mascot and logo that we would like to start using at Archer Learning Center. When we built the new building, you may remember we used this color of green throughout the building. And that truly was my brainchild, in the sense of we wanted to use a color that was not the same as the other high schools, and that was where green came from. We used the navy just as a neutral, and so those have kind of, by de facto, become our school colors. When we were thinking of what a mascot could be, aviators rose to the top because of this idea of flying and soaring and moving forward, and then also the alliteration of Archer Aviators was impressive as well. I did make a phone call to Mr. Archer's family, and his exact words were 2 thumbs up. He was just so excited that we were thinking of ways to build culture and community in our school. Some other pictures that we have in the presentation, just looking at how this could possibly be used. This is an example that the artist put together for the website, how we could start branding. You can see on the next slide, this is even for like Facebook and Twitter, what maybe it might look like. And then I showed this to one of our teachers, and they said, man, they've already painted it in the building. And so that's just another artist rendering there as well. And then lastly, I love our sign currently. Mr. Donnell really loves this. I think it looks phenomenal, but that's just an example of ways that we might brand this new logo throughout our building and on all of our different products and such. So tonight, I actually request that we're able to move forward and use the new logo and mascot. I would love your approval. I think we have a lot of kids that would be very excited to have an identity and to help build that culture. Any questions for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to channel my inner Mr. Hayes, and like, what is the cost of converting it all?
Well, currently, there is no cost that I know of. We were able to, through partnerships, get a lot of that work done. We might give some honorariums to thank those people who've helped. As far as the website is concerned, I think that will be done through our communications office and all of the social media and such. Printing it on newsletters and letterhead. I mean, there might be some nominal fees like to redo business cards and redo envelopes and such, but we're not talking anything majorly significant, and they would be things, consumables that we would have purchased anyway. So I would say pretty much no cost, or very, very limited cost.
We like that answer.
Is it gonna
Two
change?
thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.
Is
There
it
you
gonna change this?
No, it would not change that, because that's the athletics shield. And since we don't actually have any athletics teams, then Archer's logo would not be represented in that shield. Like I said, we've used the shield in the past on some of our prints, and we've also used that cursive. I don't see those things going away. I just see that we would have something that would rise more to the front.
It just gives your students their own personality.
Yes, exactly.
And so,
Have
which
you
is
polled,
awesome.
have you polled the students? What do they think?
We did. So we started by polling the students on what were some suggested mascots that they would be interested in. And there were all kinds of things like sea turtle and bears and lions. I mean, you name it, we considered them. Aviators, honestly, there was one teacher who loved the aviators so much that he pretty much sold the rest of us on it, students and teachers and community alike. He got really excited talking about we could rename parts of our buildings like the hangar and the control center, and so it was really a teacher that kind of led the effort on this aviator idea. But everyone has totally come on board with that now. And then after we polled for the actual name, then we also went back and we shared examples of what that could look like. And that was quite a process as well. If you would do a Google search of aviators, there's dozens and dozens of different logos out there. This was one that we actually found from a school in Utah. It doesn't look like theirs anymore at all. It's just inspired by the work that they did. We totally revamped that and kind of made it our own. We worked with a Harvard graduate who kind of started that process, and then we worked also with Balfour to help us kind of edit that and make it look the best it could.
Yeah, love it.
Well, looks pretty exciting to me. Is there a motion to accept the new Archer mascot?
I'll make a motion to accept the new logo and mascot for Archer.
Second?
There's a motion by Mr. Ramos, a second by Mr. Hutchinson to accept the new Archer mascot and logo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very cool.
Well, great. You can't see I'm
Congratulations.
smiling, but I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
This tie even matches
That's cold as
school
you.
colors.
Thank you, Ms. Cook and board. That was a great presentation, Dr. Davis. I appreciate it. And I too like it, and it has your Colby green. So that is a great
The
color.
tie didn't go unnoticed.
Yeah. We thought it was the green. There you go. Okay. Jeremy, would you mind to come to the podium? Jeremy's done a really good job of pulling together information for our facilities report. He's placed in your packet DTSOI updates and a video. As you know, I'm fond of the videos, and he knows that, and he put that in there. You certainly don't have to watch that video tonight, and for the sake of time, but if you do, it's in your agenda, and we're happy for you to have that. He's also pulled together a series of about 30 or so.
Yeah, I had 33 just pictures from SOI's Phase 2. So it just showing the progress, because I mean, you probably haven't been there. We could tour it any time that, if you guys want to. But all of the curb gutters and paving are done outside, which makes it look a whole lot better. Areas A, B, and C are pretty much done inside. Furniture's in, other than just final punch list. Of the terrazzo in the admin area is done. The Phoenix is in it. It's all completed. They're working on the learning stairs. They just like getting the railing and the seating actually put in it. All the culinary art equipment is been installed. Our team actually worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday last week, sealing concrete in Area D, which is the industrial maintenance labs and the diesel mechanic labs. All the built-in cabinetry is going in the labs, the science labs and everything. The PAC is on track right now to open at the end of December. And then they've started rough grading the exterior, all the green areas. They'll be putting hydro seed and getting that ready to start getting that done. So our shop teacher, Wes, and then Rodney Ellis, they will be going to Clarksville tomorrow, actually, to get some more industrial maintenance equipment for those labs. So that's pretty much the update on SOI. And then I did put the newest video into the link, that shows the whole exterior. It's really starting to look really good. Damon and myself and Kevin went out this morning, and we're trying to get a drop-off plan together. So it's really coming along. But if you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. And if you guys want to go tour the building, just get a hold of me and I'll set up a time to tour it.
There's some special provisions for that too, like steel-toed boots and some.
Yeah,
other
so
safety
they've
equipment.
added, you have to have mask, high-vis vest, closed-toed shoes, pants. So they've added a lot of revisions, but the reason is to try not to have any workers quarantined to put us behind schedule. Because right now, we're right on schedule to take over July 31st. We should get everything but PAC in the gym,
So maybe we should wait till August 1st.
Yeah, let's not go.
probably.
Okay.
Or we could tour it after hours. After the workers leave, we could go in and tour it then.
Okay.
It looks really good. I think the photos show a pretty good view of the areas. You can see all the colors, all the furniture matches. I mean, it looks really, really good.
Great.
And the
What's the big
PAC and
tubes?
gym was how far along did you say?
We should get it at the end of December. Right now, like in the PAC, they've got scaffolding set up. We're putting in all the rigging, everything up high on the ceiling, and working our way down. The gym it's further along
Yeah.
than the PAC, but there's a lot of infrastructure to go in the PAC, audio, video, lighting, all of that's what we're focused on right now in the PAC.
Okay.
What's the big tubes that come down from the ceiling, the big black tubes? I'll just show you. Is that the shop?
That's the welding lab,
Okay.
so that's the industrial maintenance lab, all the welders will go in, those are exhaust.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so they're magnetic, so wherever the student's welding, they can just put that hood over whatever they're welding or cutting or whatever, to get the fumes out.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Jeremy,
right.
don't run off. We may need you for the next two.
Okay.
Letter B, our baseball, softball, cheer, dance, wrestling update. I've primarily done that along with Mr. Hayes, and of course Jeremy's filled in as needed over time. But we are ready to go. They brought us a budget the other day that I think is going to be well within what we had anticipated. Originally, we thought it would be about $4 million. It's coming under 3. There will be some aspects, it's about 2.8. There will be some aspects of things that we'll likely need to add. For example, in the coaches' offices, we'll add furniture, some equipment. So that's not expensive. I'm told by Coach Stellick that we already have our mats, our wrestling mats and things, so that shouldn't be an additional cost. There will be some maintenance to those mats, our mats over time, where we add some additional mats. So we're excited for that. We're ready to hit go. I think the bids are in and we're ready. So it was just kind of an update. I know that you had set our budget before. We're under that and we're kind of excited about it. Yes, sir.
So that includes the new locker room at Springdale High School,
Yes, sir.
and then the cheer and dance area that's gonna be attached to the corner of Harbor.
Correct.
And what else?
The other
Wrestling.
baseball, softball over at Harbor. They're identical between Springdale High and Harbor. We
Okay.
plan to begin Springdale High's first because of the ability of the Masons to get there and the cleanliness of the site. And then whenever Harbor is ready to go with their cheer and dance facility, the Masons can work on both at the same time, which saves us money. So our effort is to try to get all of them coordinated to where in the end, we pay less money for quality products.
So there's another locker room that's gonna go at Harbor.
Yes, sir.
Where at? Where's that gonna be?
It's going, you know where the current concession stand is?
Yeah.
And the track, right there beside the Bradshaw Arch?
Okay,
It's right there over toward the softball field.
got it? Okay.
It was much cheaper and much more efficient for us to not use to add on to the indoor field house right there. Here's an extra that I think all of you will love, that we added into the budget at the end, which saved us some money. The area that's grassed in, that would be on the southwest side of the indoor,
Southwest.
toward the
Okay.
baseball field and tennis courts, we're gonna have that as a parking lot. Got it paved, got it curbed, guttered, the whole bit. So that'll be really handy for anyone who has a handicapping condition that needs to have wheelchair access. So that's a great thing.
Awesome.
So we did that at a really reasonable price. Anything to add there?
I think that's it.
Okay? In regard to the elementary school located in Tawnytown, Mr. Hayes has been sharpening his pencil. We've worked with Flintco and their estimators at a very deep level. The original drawing that was presented, I think, have I sent you those drawings?
that's not-
Okay. Those original drawings have been scuttled, and we were able to bring about new drawings that could fit into the budget range that we had initially discussed. Dr. Rollins had talked about early 16 to 18 million with the ability to go up to do furniture, fixtures, and equipment with more. It appears this particular budget, help me, Mr. Hayes, is going to be between 22 and 24 all in. Is that correct? 22.5. So 22.5, that means all in. There's nothing hidden. There's not anything that we're doing ourselves that's not added to the budget. That is exactly everything, the cost of the facility. That is a tremendous dollar figure when we're discussing what it's costing to build other facilities today per square foot. It's going to be hovering around the $200 a square foot. There's 91,000 square feet. We think it'll be a great addition at Tawnytown. Some extraneous conversations that are taking place on the side is Tawnytown needs to have some additional utilities. They're adding a 12-inch water line going down to 412. Hopefully, as we are beginning that construction, they're doing that construction, we can tie into it, which will save us money and save Tawnytown money. So we're working with ESI. ESI is a really good partner with us in the construction of the Tawnytown school. And I don't really know quite what to call that, so I'll just say this elementary school located in Tawnytown. So we're pushing forward with that. Yes, sir.
Does the 22.5 include all the infrastructure, anything extra that has to be done with roads or?
That's our belief.
Everything?
So it could potentially come down.
Okay.
If we're able to save some money in those areas. But we
Is there
didn't
a-
want to give you a minimum number and it
Right.
go over. We'd rather give you a maximum number and try to beat the expectations.
Is there a lot of infrastructure that Tawnytown's requiring us to do in order to have the school, or?
Yes, if we were able, if everything went the way pre-negotiation, it would be about 900,000. So we're working to try to squeeze that, and Tawnytown's working with us. So there is no way in the world that I wouldn't say that they're not being great partners, because they are. But there are aspects that we need to be able to coordinate together to improve not only the Tawnytown infrastructure, but have it prepared for the elementary school.
Has that been submitted to the planning commission yet out there, or is it just getting
Yes.
ready to be? Okay.
Yes, and I believe they've made comments, and that those comments have come back to ESI and to Brad, and so they're making adjustments. Brad Chilcote with WD&D. So they're making adjustments to try to meet the expectations of the planners. That's as much information as I know today. We'll work on getting more information about it next board meeting. Okay. Any other questions? Jeremy, do you have anything to add on Tawnytown?
Not on the Tawnytown.
Okay. Yes.
What was that?
8.2.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Okay, that concludes that aspect of facilities. Letter I in my area is consider face coverings for our staff and students. I know that face coverings across the country, people call it mask, can be a lightning rod and create some political debate. My perspective, and the perspective that I've lived in Springdale over the last 7 years, is that this is a community of care for one another. A culture of care has been carefully crafted in our community. Although I believe there's extreme personal responsibility in me caring for Mr. Bell and caring for Ms. Smalling close to me, they also are showing that personal responsibility of caring for me by wearing their face coverings. So our thought process in our district has been, how can we create this culture of care without mandating or requiring? Well, since it's so politically divided, plus we have the need for our students to have safety measures put in place for their protection, And quite honestly, we need safety measures put in place for our staff. Without either group, students or faculty, the school district doesn't work, and it's not an orchestrated effort. There's disharmony, disconnection, and we need both. So the efforts that we've all put forward, along with our districts around us, I've worked very closely with Dr. Debbie Jones and with Dr. Berry and Rogers and Dr. Colbert in Fayetteville to try to craft or create language that is similar, okay, and a potential policy for you to consider. The result of that face coverings policy that all 4 districts worked on and crafted together is below. So I can't take total credit for it, nor can I take total criticism for it, because all of the districts are considering this particular policy. And what Ms. Kendra Clay has done for us is try to make it more clear for student expectations and staff expectations. The original crafting of the language had it together. So we've reshared our amendments with the other team members, we'll call them, of the Northwest region. So tonight, my request to you is for you to consider, in a temporary way, establishing a policy or a guideline or a practice of wearing face coverings for students that are K through 12. When I reviewed the data of the number of children in Arkansas who have passed away from the COVID-related issues, it was in the newspaper this last Sunday, I believe, that none, maybe it was the previous Sunday, no students age 0 to 7 have passed away from COVID-19. I believe there was a death in Oklahoma over the weekend. That's challenging, that's scary. But when you move forward from 18 to around 24, although they may have about 13% of the cases, it was only 6% of the deaths. Well, our staff is from 24 primarily through 65 and up. We do have people that work in our district that are our seniors, right, our senior individuals. What's really scary is age 65 and up, although 10% of the cases, 71% of the deaths. That's a shocking, staggering figure. Our bus drivers, as you know, their average age is around 65. So we're very scared for our bus drivers to contract this particular virus. We're worried about that. So it's important that when students get on the buses that they protect themselves. We have hand sanitizers, and I'll have Jeremy come back up and talk about how we will clean and sanitize all of our facilities and our buses. But they're nervous. We're down 17 school bus drivers as of yesterday. When you have 100 or so, 17 is a relatively large number. And more are likely to decide not to work this year or to do something else. So the challenge is real. It's substantial. Talked to a lot of parents, a lot of staff members. Now keep in mind, there are 2 sides. You have people who say that, I really don't think a mask is going to be good for my child. Well, I understand that. So we need to really work to have balance to where we can have some breaks. If you have the ability to step away more than 6 feet or 12 feet, let's have those breaks. For our staff members, they want breaks too. We've had some staff members say, hey doc, I've got some anxiety about having something on my face. I do too. But I care enough about each one of you, and I know you care about each one of us, because you're wearing these face coverings today, not only because you think it's important, it's because you care about one another, I would assume, knowing each one of you. So there are 2 sides to everything, at least. Mr. Ramos and I discussed there may be 3 or 4 earlier in the day, to every particular issue. So tonight is a consideration for a temporary request to have all students and staff, especially on buses, because social distancing is not going to be an option there. It's just too tight. To have face coverings for bus students and staff. I welcome any discussion. Certainly need your guidance and your wisdom as we move forward. And I know that no matter what choice you make, you as a board, us as an administration, and as a district, will receive some criticism. You also receive some claim for for taking on such a hard issue. Ms. President?
I know we have all had the public reach out to us, which I think is great. I think we need to hear from as many people as possible, and I think we have. And I appreciate everyone that took the time to reach out to me and to the board in general. I know that I feel confident that we need to do this. I know that it's going to be challenging. Y'all know it's been challenging all night for all of us to wear it. I know it's going to be challenging for the kids. I know it's going to be challenging for the teachers, but we're in a crazy time. And I believe that we're going to have to give everybody a little bit of grace. And just like you're watching all of us bring these up and down and try to figure out, we've all try to figure out which mask works best for us the longest. And I'm hopeful and honestly prayerful that parents and students are doing that as well at home and trying to figure out how long they can go with which mask and which one works best and how can I best talk to my friends and how can I still see my teacher. So, while I'm doing that at my home, I hope that others are as well. But I just wanted to thank everyone that has reached out to us. I just want you to know we have heard you and we hear your concerns and we hear, we're all a little bit scared at times. And so we just want you to know, or I want you to know that we support you. Does any of the board have do we want to open this to discussion? Do we want to talk about clarifications or age or?
I think that's my question is age related? Seems like, and where the age 10 came from, I'm not sure. But it does seem like, I guess the CDC has said if you're under 10, it's not necessarily something that they need to wear, but they need to wear a face covering. So have we put any research or thought into elementary not needing face masks, but middle school and up needing them, or?
There's been quite a bit of discussion, not only internally in the district, but externally. Last night, I had a quite extensive call from Dr. Gary Wheeler. He not only teaches at UAMS, he's an infectious disease doctor, and he is the medical doctor for Department of Health. And I didn't solicit his call. He reached out to me this past week and said, hey, can we connect? And so we did. So I picked his brain for quite a while. He asked what we were doing, what I anticipated that we might do, and I anticipated that we would consider this and you would make a decision. That's what I told him. But I felt confident that some sort of temporary requirement would be coming forward. Didn't know exactly what it would be. And I asked him, what's your recommendation? And he said, really, 2 and up is important. Mm-hmm. 2, that age 2 is something because, when you're below 2, it's really hard. I mean, the children are a push and pull, and it's hard to get them used to it. Now, you hand them a telephone, somehow they're able to know how to navigate that thing. But a face covering of some sort could be difficult. And of course, he went on to talk about people, not just children, but people in general who have any kind of medical condition that would be Americans with Disabilities request not to have those. How would that work? He said there are medically fragile people who need additional oxygen, and very likely those people won't be in a school setting anyway. So his recommendation was to continue forward with the face covering of anyone that's above 2. Now, here we do have a pre-K. We have our children who are 3, 4, 5, 2 per time. Right now, if you select to do above 2, that would take into account your pre-K. Of course, we have a lot of pre-K teachers in our district. And we have many families who need that pre-K opportunity for their children. But right now, the discussion has only been limited to K through 12.
anyone have any?
I haven't talked to any pre-K teachers, but I do know, like, my friends who have children in that pre-K age group, like, I don't think daycares are requiring face masks at this point, are they? Like, for kids under 5? Does anybody know?
I don't think so.
The only thing that I'll say, and I'm for the mask wearing, but I have a boy that has a problem with sensory issues. He has sensory issues, and he started summer school recently, and he's actually went from wearing no mask to wearing a mask an hour. It's about an hour and a half he wears the mask, and he's had no issues with it. So, you know, I think it's hard for kids to keep it on, but I think if he can get over it, I think most kids can. It's just a matter of getting used to it.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard for us. I mean,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
try
for
to, I
me,
mean, trying to
yeah.
figure out which one, can we touch our face to move it back up if it's falling down? Can we not? Do we like the ones behind our ears? Do we like the clear, new, shields? I mean, thankfully, we have a little bit of time to keep figuring out. And I truly encourage and hope all that of our parents that are working on that. I mean, are just kind of trying to figure out, hey, make it fun. I mean, figure out how they can. Hey, I know one of the pictures from one of the schools I saw today had a Baby Yoda mask. I was like, I want to find that kid. I want that mask. So, I mean, I think if they can, just like when they're little and picking out, the T-shirt of their favorite character or whatever. I think if they can own it a little bit. I mean, I do believe that our older students may be a little bit more challenging. They tend to be a little stubborn. But I think if we talk to them as well about who they're doing it for, I think if our teachers, our coaches, and talk to them about saying, I have someone at home, or wear a mask for me, or wear a mask for your friend that has diabetes, or your friend that has cystic fibrosis, there's a lot of things out there that I think if we talk to our students about the reasons why to wear a mask, I think we can kind of get there. We just have to give everybody a little bit of grace in working towards it. Do we need to, is this a case where we need to have specific wording and policy about the policy in place? Do we need to table this to work on wording, or do we need to vote?
Well,
Up or down?
there's one aspect of it that I've seen tonight that has entered my mind that I'd like to bring your attention to. In the area of students, 1, 2, 3, the fourth bullet down, it says parents will be responsible for supplying face coverings for their children. I'd like to add, if they choose not to participate in the district-provided face coverings. Because right now, for those who don't know, Children's Hospital, along with George's family and Lacey Bank and others, have stepped forward to say, we would love to help provide some buffs or face coverings. Mr. Donnell has asked him to lead that. Mr. Donnell, would you mind to come to the podium to talk to us about the buffs and the cost and the numbers of buffs that will be provided and masks to students at no charge to any families?
So we Children's Hospital reached out, Dr. at Cleveland asked me to reach out to Children's Hospital. I reached out to them, they called back. They want to provide, it's about 11,000 buffs. We were gonna make up the difference for that, so that they'll provide 11,000, we'll do it, it's actually 11,500, and we'll do another 11,500 with our, I wish I had the pictures, I showed Michelle earlier today. It'll have the tree logo, this exact buff that you're wearing with the gray background, except it has the tree logo on it, of the Springdale district logo. And then also in addition to that, so we'll have enough of those buffs for every student in Springdale and every staff member, well, I'm sorry, let me back up. Every student in Springdale to have 2 of those buffs, every staff member to have 1 buff and a face covering that has adjustable ear loops. And that will also say, it'll have the logo on one side, and it'll say Springdale School District, teach them all means all on it. So, I priced buffs for the last week. I could be a buff expert right now. I told Dr. Cleveland I know more about buffs than I ever wanted to know. But I will say that, the prices started out at about $2 a piece. And through negotiating and volume, we were able to get that down to around 65 cents, which is amazing for the buffs. And then also for the mask, it was about, I want to say it's 75 cents. So very, very super reasonable cost on those. Children's Hospital actually said at first that they would wanted my information for contact, and then I guess they did a little digging on price, and they were like, no, we just want to order with you guys, and they're going to reimburse the district. So that's a really good thing. It's a good thing. I've asked Jackson Alley to come up today. He actually looked at some of the buffs. He's a student at Harbor High School. Got his feedback on it. He mentioned that there might be some option for kids to have, like some secondary kids to have a buff and a mask instead of just 2 buffs. I looked at that. I've also let other students look at those masks and try them on. The general consensus is that at first they looked at the buff and they were like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Then they put the buff on. They're like, you know what? I like this a lot better. I had my girls try them on. Girls have a different perspective, I found out very quickly, than boys have. And part of that was just the makeup piece, which I would have never thought about. The girls like the buffs more because it doesn't affect the makeup or any of that kind of thing. And also, along the same lines on the buff piece is, I'm losing my chain of thought here. Oh, it was important too. I can't remember. It'll hit me in a second, but anyway, it's been about a week.
They won't lose them.
They won't lose them, yes. So I reached out to Kennecut Camps. My dad worked at Kennecut for 35 years, and I know a lot of folks that I can call and just ask questions, and also War Eagle Camps, a couple of schools in Dallas, a camp in the northern state. It's come to me, the name of it. Anyway, all of them said the same exact message was when they had masks like this, they were cross-contaminating by kids putting them down and sticking them on, the table and things. Especially when they ate, they're finding masks everywhere. They quickly moved to buffs. Once they moved to buffs, and for example, the Camp War Eagle buff I think was $6 a piece, and we're able to get almost an identical buff for 65 cents. So,
Are there different sizes?
there are. I'm glad you brought that up. The buff that you're wearing is a 9.5-inch buff. That's from seam to, they're seamless, but they call it seam to seam. So they're 9.5 inches. We have decided that an 8-inch buff would be a K through 5 buff, and then a 9.5. There could be some bleed over too, or mix and match, but a 9.5 could be from 6th grade through 12th. Same thing on the ear loop mask too. That's all adjustable through the ear loop. Any other questions? Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much. I know it's a difficult
subject because of the potential emotion from others. But when you're talking about trying to shorten the pandemic to where we actually have an opportunity to get to a life that we once remember, because I don't want to remember this. I don't want to keep living this kind of thing. Personally, my nose is flat enough and and difficult to breathe out of. So having the buff helps me to get to where I need to be because of the glasses and the fogging and all that over the masks. But I'd like to get to some point to where we have some normal back. This doesn't feel normal to me. And so the idea of a temporary measure to try to help get us through to shorten that length of time for us to get to a normal makes a lot of sense to me personally. And that is my hope, that people will be able to provide the grace, as you're so eloquently said, Ms. Cook, to us, because we're trying to open. We've been mandated to open. So we will open. We need to be able to do it in a way that protects everyone. We can't do without our students, or we're not necessary. And we can't do without our staff, because we can't teach them alone. So the effort in the end is to provide a balance to where students and parents feel comfortable, our staff feels comfortable. Once we get that out of the way, then our focus can be on how do we teach them all at the highest level. And I think we have a great plan to do that Dr. Smith is going to be prepared to talk to you about tonight. So my hope is that you would consider it, and it would be a favorable consideration for a temporary policy to wear the face coverings.
So, like Ms. Cook just said, I think we do have maybe, and like you said, there's stuff in there that may need to change or may need to be tweaked just a little bit. But I honestly think we need to reach some kind of resolution tonight, because I spoke with one principal in the district who has staff here waiting to see what we say to decide what they're going to do. And I don't think they need to wait until August to make that decision. Like, we need to let them know.
Well, they have to know about tomorrow,
Yeah.
correct?
That we, you know, like, I personally, I just want to say, I'm sending 2 kids, a husband, and a sister back to school. And I want for them to be safe. I want the people around them to feel safe. But I also want to know that we're working to get to a point where we can say this is no longer necessary. So there's no language in there right now that says what is that point? Is it a specific number? Is it a positivity rate? Is it, you know, what is that? And so I want to make sure we have that, because the other side of, you know, thinking the masks aren't as effective as they could be, or they're not effective at all, or maybe they're even negative. You know, there are people that on both sides that, you know, we're trying to do the best we can. But for those people who have concerns about the mask, I want to make sure that we are addressing their concerns as well by saying this is temporary and here's what it's going to look like when we can stop doing this. But until then, I think we need to work to get to that point by doing everything we can to take care of each other, if that makes sense.
If there's anything you'd like to add, I'm certainly capable tonight of.
I have a lot of questions and not a lot of answers.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, like, I think we need to pass something, but I want to make sure that we can define what is the sunset of this, what is the end, you know, and maybe we can't define that. Maybe we're not ready to define that. You know, I've heard 5% positivity rate a lot, but that's pretty arbitrary too, you know, like maybe that's not enough. I don't have an answer.
Well, I know that our governor and our health department, they're on top of it. I don't know of any single individual in this state any more excited to get through this pandemic and have it behind us than our governor. And I think about him on a daily basis. I worry about him on a daily basis, and I pray for him on a daily basis. And I want to make sure that we are able to follow his orders, his directives, because that's our charge. And I think that he will likely provide us, Ms. Creek, with that end time as it approaches. So hopefully we could revisit when he says this pandemic is behind us, you can resume phase 3 potentially, and maybe that be the opportunity of sunset. Just a thought.
Yeah, the other thing I really would like to have a concrete answer on is the age. You know, like, we all heard age 10 and up, which doesn't make a lot of sense in a school, because you're gonna have like a grade split. So you're gonna have half of the class wearing a mask and half not. So I think we need to go by grades and say these grades are gonna do it. I think I've probably heard more concerns from younger grades teachers about trying to get younger kids to wear a mask. And so I don't know if it's allowed or not, and I don't want to put Ms. Fink on the spot, but if you have any input, I would love to hear it personally on the ages. And I'm so sorry for putting you on the spot.
And so I had the privilege of attending, as a lot of you did too, all of our high school graduation, non-traditional high school graduation walks. And we commented as a CNI team how impressed we were at the little guys that were coming and wearing masks and did not have an issue with the masks. I know our younger grade teachers are extremely concerned about students not wearing masks because we're not protecting our teachers. And as Dr. Cleveland mentioned, that's, I mean, one of our biggest goals is to protect the people that work in our district and protect the children, you know, that we serve. So what I'm hearing from teachers is the concern of not requiring younger students to wear masks because they can be carriers too. They may be asymptomatic and we not ever know it, but they could transmit the virus to their teacher. And I know, you know, Ashlyn, my daughter Ashlyn is 10 and we are practicing mask wearing, but we have a lot of children that live in our neighborhood that are a lot younger than she is, and they are actively practicing mask wearing as well.
So what about pre-K? Do you have a thought on that?
I think pre-K, we even saw little guys like 3 and 4 year olds running around at graduations wearing masks.
Oh, I know,
think
they
it's
get little
doable. They're just
tiny
tiny, so they're cute. Yeah. I think we owe it to our pre-K teachers to protect them as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Plenty to continue to discuss. The beautiful thing is you have the ability to have follow-up meetings. And in August, you'll have a meeting prior to the opening of school. And as you know, school's been postponed from 13th to the 24th to the 26th. And tonight, you'll have a recommendation for an academic calendar. But there are opportunities to go ahead and amend. And tonight, I think maybe to get to your point, Ms. Creek, is that we will temporarily install a policy for all students. You may just say all students in the Springdale School District to wear a mask when the 6 foot distance, social distance is not an option. Maybe on buses and in other areas.
But we can come back next month and add like a specific sunset and
Absolutely, if that's.
if needed.
Absolutely.
And I think it's addressed in there. I had a copy and I don't know what I did with it. Oh, Mr. Emerson stole my copy. One of the things is, like, we talk about breaks, and I know it's not super specific in there, but the other thing is, like, if a teacher deems it safe for her class to take them off because, like, they're outside or they're doing something, like, I will make sure that a specific teacher has the ability to make that decision on a day-to-day. Is that a fair statement, or like an activity to activity? That I want to make sure that our teachers have flexibility to control it as they need to. Like, not necessarily say, I don't believe in face coverings, I'm not wearing them, but in this instance, we have enough space. Do you have something? Oh, I got her up again.
Yes, I think when we can safely socially distance children 6 feet apart, especially at recess, face coverings can come off. We're even beginning to talk about specialty classes and talking to some principals today about what that could look like in our schools and how to safely socially distance in PE and art. Is utilizing some of our bigger spaces like our cafeteria and our gyms so that we can safely socially distance students 6 feet apart and get the mask off their face so they can have a mask break. We know, I mean, I'm dying to get out and take this off and take a deep breath. And our children will want that as well. So when it's safe to do so.
Go with this and then come back.
Okay. Any more discussion? Is there a motion to accept what has been presented so far?
I will make a motion to accept the language that has been put forward in this policy that our neighbors are doing also for now, and look at it further and come back and
Amend it.
if we need to amend it and add some parameters, you know, what we can look forward to as far as when to stop, then we can do that. So, but I think we need to go ahead and move forward with this for right now, and then we'll just keep an eye on it over the next month or two and see if we need to make some amendments to it. So Leanne, good luck on putting that into a motion. However you can make that sound good.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first by Mr. Hutchinson, a second by Mr. Ramos to accept the face coverings policy as presented with the option to amend in the future. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And face coverings passes.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. We'll scroll back up to where we need to be. Okay.
Jill's
Presentation by the Department of Instruction, is that correct, Ms. Cook?
Yes. Is it, I know it's under Marcia, but is it Ms. Laws?
Quick comment as well, but we are starting our campaign today, Wear Because You Care. And we have amazing people working on that, so you'll be seeing some information coming out on social media. Trent Jones and some of the other people in our district are helping put that on, so you'll be seeing that pushed out. As you'll know, just recently the governor came out and along with Desi and changed the start date of the school year, and so Ms. Law is here to present two different calendars and tell you which one had the votes that were sent out. So Ms. Law, if you come forward, please.
Hello, everyone. I thought I was just here presenting the other calendar a few months ago.
A lot has happened since then.
I know. I was watching the news when the governor went ahead and said that we're gonna push the start date. I was waiting for the text. A few hours later, I got a text, let's work, and I'd already started thinking some things. And my thoughts were right in line with Dr. Smith and Dr. Cleveland's. Our original start date was Thursday the 6th, doing our normal 5 days of teacher professional development beforehand, and starting on the 13th. During the school year, we have 4 teacher work days, professional developments during the school day. We moved those 4 to the beginning of the school year. So we'll do 9 of our professional development, which allowed us to add 4 during student days during the calendar year. We're trying not to push that end date into June with starting later, still going to 178 days, didn't want to go until June. So that freed up 4 days. And then the week of Thanksgiving, which is normally a full week of no students or teachers at school, we're going to turn Monday and Tuesday into 2 remote learning days. This allows us to finish the semester before Christmas break. That's a big deal for the high schools because they do the finals the week before Christmas break. They always do the finals to end the semester. Well, by law, you have to have 40 days in a quarter. So we have 40 days in the first 9 weeks, we have 41 in the second 9 weeks. By turning those 2 Thanksgiving days into remote, that allowed us to keep that semester not overflowing into January. And then we'll have the next 2 continuing on. We'll still take MLK off as a holiday, and our spring break will stay the same, which really this only pushes our end date 1 day by taking the PD days and things like that. So we still finish before Memorial Day. That's always a goal, is to finish Memorial Day. There's something about the Memorial Day. Nobody wants to go after Memorial Day. But this is the calendar 1. Calendar A with 72.6% of the votes of the staff. Do y'all have any questions on this?
I don't. I think you're amazing for getting that all done. Whoever worked on it, thank you.
It was a combined effort.
I appreciate it. That's awesome.
Jill, what's the big difference between A and B?
B still had teachers going August the 6th.
Uh-huh.
We would go the 6th, 7th, the 10th through the 14th, and then the 17th and 18th, and they would take 3 days off before we started school. And most teachers wanted to just, once they started, let's go. Hit the ground, let's do it, let's take our 9 days. We originally had looked at, Dr. Smith had put the 10 days, all 10 days in August, and we discussed it to allow a teacher to have that work day at the end. Teachers have to have that day to wrap up their classrooms, pack it away, and things like that. So we moved our teacher flex day, which is normally the day where if a teacher's done 6 hours of workshop in the summer, they're void from having they've already put in the professional development. We moved that to May. So if a teacher needs to only go in for a couple of hours, they can go in for those couple of hours, or if they get it, I normally just stay late because I think we've had this flex day before, have fallen on that end day. And some teachers will just stay late that last day with kids and wrap it up and call it a year.
Is that giving us enough time for teachers to get ready for this?
In August, so the days will break down into one teacher day to work in the classroom, which we always give the teachers 6 hours of in class, decorating whatever they need to do. We have 3 days for the elementary and middle school teachers. We'll be doing three days of science of reading, 2 days of working on digital learning, or assignments, or working on lessons that can go digital. One more to work on like Google Classroom, Screencastify, tools that you could use in that. Social and emotional learning, and then a day for principals to go over new procedures in your building.
We're
The
only
whole
giving
thing.
them 1 day to do that.
So we have 9 days beforehand to do.
State law requires that all elementary teachers get the science of reading, and those are spread throughout the year. So when we move into this calendar, all 3 of those days will be down at front for all.
It's a lot. It's gonna be I mean, when we hit the ground on the 11th, everybody needs to be ready. 'Cause we got a lot of, but we're ready. And as a teacher, I appreciate y'all doing the mask. It is gonna be, and I just keep telling everyone, it's a year. Let's pray that it's just a year, and then next fall, we'll be back to full force every
There
day.
is gonna be some time for actually building their lessons as they start moving forward for that first week. That's our goal, is for teachers to start using all the tools that they're learning, to actually start creating those lessons so they kind of get it start to do.
I'm just thinking, I mean, there are so many, we had to all leave our, classrooms like crazy. And then, so to go in and rebuild a classroom the way that, I mean, I know they've been thinking about it since this hit, but how to rebuild my classroom that they can be spaced, number one. And number two, then how to start thinking into, well, what happens for all these steps. I don't know, that's just my fear, which I know it's not our call as much as it's the state as far as what days and however, but that's just my concern, is are we giving them enough time?
And I know many teachers, and I've already contacted I said, hey, is my shampoos, my carpet's all been shampooed, because I'm gonna start go up there and start moving some things around. I would say 90% of teachers have already started thinking about it, and they're gonna be going in, and we're gonna start moving things around. I do it way before. I did ask, and some things are gonna be adjusted once we know how many kids are gonna be on our rosters in our classroom. How many kids are gonna go digital? How many kids are gonna be blended? So, maybe I'm only gonna have, my biggest class might only be 15 kids. I can rearrange my desk a little differently. So I think a lot of it's gonna happen once we know our numbers. I think that's gonna be the biggest factor. We won't know that till 1st of August.
And you said A, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the, 72?
72.6%.
So 73%,
Yes.
okay. So that's pretty healthy.
Yeah, it was, I laughed because I had it pulled up on my computer, and after 50 votes, this was almost the identical, and then this was after 1,800 votes, I think, or 1,500 votes. The percentage was almost the same after 50 votes to this one. So,
Any questions, concerns? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept option A for the 2020-21 school calendar.
I'll second.
I have a first by Mrs. Creek and a second by Mr. Bell to accept the new calendar option A for the 2021 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good job. Brett.
Thank you so much.
She's quite a rock star. She's so appreciated. She and the whole PTC.
Yeah, that's awesome. We appreciate you.
She did an amazing job. She was working late into the evening and calling and making sure everything was done with fidelity. We did want you to know that when we were looking at this schedule, we were doing everything we possibly can to build in as much time for teachers to actually plan for the lessons and in their classroom. There are some, and we have a new learning management system. Some people are very familiar with it. some people need some practice with it. So we're trying to make sure we can personalize it for the teachers in the building. So, I want to say that we're really excited about this year. 6 people at central office, 3 of them are holding new positions. So Dr. Cleveland and Mr. Hayes have stepped into their new positions and hit the ground running, and we've done amazing things. I just want to say I'm thrilled to have Ms. Fink. She actually worked her entire vacation and came up early and has been working tirelessly with Ms. Tischer and myself, and she's a great addition to the team, and we're very fortunate to have her. The part of this part of the agenda, Ready for Learning Plan, and the reopening of schools for 2021 is actually going to have a blended approach between the 3 of us and covering some of the stuff that we know teachers are really interested in hearing about. But I wanted to go back and revisit just for a second the planning for re-engagement, because I think some of the decisions that you have just made this evening have really taken this into consideration. And I think sometimes it's hard to imagine all these pieces coming together. But I wanted to underline something that I think is very important, in that when decisions are made, that these 6 educational systems must work in harmony. And when you start looking at the circle with students at the center, facilities and transportation, if you think about all the changes that have to be made since the beginning, we have amazing people that are taking care of this. We're going to talk about academics tonight, and that's where our focus is going to be. And what does that mean for re-engagement? Human capital, you know, that's something we have to consider. If we kind of got a little carried away with that, Mr. Hayes might be saying something, but making sure that we're addressing their needs as well, and that we're able to meet the needs of the students as well. Student supports. The decisions that we're making, there are a lot of support systems with dyslexia, 504, special ed, English language learners, and every time a change is made within the district, we have to consider these student supports and how are these being addressed and how are we meeting the needs of students. And so these decisions that you've made, even the start of the school and the questions you've asked, we really want to thank the board for these decisions, because it does allow us to do a lot of planning right now and get moving forward. Stakeholders and family community engagement, that's also important. And then of course the district operations and the financial part of what is happening, that all has to be taken into consideration. When we originally talked about the re-engagement, one of the things that they stated was that we needed to have a district team. And as you know, we put together the co-task team. But I wanted to be very clear about this. So when you read what they asked, they wanted us to consider teachers, principals, central office staff, partner organizations, IT, student support services, chief academic officer, food service, family community, medical professions, higher ed partners, and so forth. If you'll notice on this list, that represents those 6 parts that we were talking about just a minute ago. The 2 groups that were left off of this that we thought were instrumental in moving forward was our students and our school board. So we asked you guys to come alongside us as we were moving forward, and we appreciate you guys coming to the meetings that we had in regards to that. The District Ready for Learning Committee, I did want to share with everybody who was on the committee, and it's listed all those people that were on that list. In addition to, we had 5 building administrators, classroom teachers, school board members, and you can see the rest of that: parents, students, Springdale City and partners, Marshallese liaisons, and Spanish liaisons. Well, the first meeting we had, not everybody could come. We have done a send out of some of the information, and we've gotten great response from these individuals helping us move forward. So I just wanted to thank everybody that was out there that helped us move forward with this. So where are we? What tonight you approved the resolution for flexibility, and so what we're going to show tonight is something that is required of us to be documented by September 1st. And so these were the steps. The first thing we had to do is we had to submit assurances and an application to DESE saying we want to continue with the flexibility that we know are going to be required for our students to be successful. That was step 1. And that was kind of what you guys looked at this evening. Step 2, the board took it forward and it was approved. Step 3 is by September 1st, we have to have posted on our district website our plan, and which is what we're going to go through tonight. Know that this is just a foundational part of what we're putting together. And once that is done, then we have to notify DESI that we put it on our website. They'll come into our website, check it out, and give us any suggestions about what we need to change. So tonight, what we really want to do is go through what that plan looks like. There are 7 steps, and for the most part, what we're going to do tonight is really focus on step number 1. Step number 1 is how can we provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum that also includes blended learning. That word blended learning is a hot topic right now, and I think you're going to hear some really good things that really support students and teachers. Also the diagnostic assessment. We're also going to talk about unfinished learning that may have taken place back in May. Our learning management system, it'll be referred to as an LMS. How are we going to train our teachers, which I know Ms. Cook just mentioned. How are we going to make sure that we can support our teachers and their learning? What does it look like for this blended delivery message, and how are we going to train our teachers? How are we going to provide supports for parents and students? And then how is our written communication plan going to look? But for the most part, number 1 really addresses, when we address number 1, we really hit all those other areas. So action number 1 said, what are we going to do about guaranteeing a viable curriculum? And how does blended learning fit into this? And what about the diagnostic assessment that we're required to do? So one of the things that happened with DESI is DESI came out and said, we are going to support you in every way we can. The support we know might be only for a year, so we know that whatever is given, we have a year in which to benefit from it. There are 3 parts. Ms. Tischer is going to come up and really give you a very clear overview of what blended looks like in our district. So she's going to talk about the 3 instructional models. Right after that, Ms. Fink is going to come up and talk about this guaranteed and viable curriculum. How can we guarantee that if our students are not in front of us face-to-face, that we can still guarantee that they're getting the support that they need at home to have a quality education? And then the diagnostic assessment, we have already been given the NWEA MAP assessment case through 6. And the reason this is important is they want to make sure that we can figure out gaps in learning with our students. And so we will continue to give that. We'll give it as early as possible. And so we'll be moving forward with that information to help support our students as well. So at this point, I'm going to have Ms. Tischer come forward and talk about our instructional models.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland and board, for allowing us to present to you a little more in depth this evening about what the instructional models will look like for Springdale Public Schools. So as Dr. Smith mentioned, here in Springdale Public Schools, we will have 3 learning models for our families to choose from. We have provided a flow chart here for you that I really think will help provide you with a clear picture of this structure of choice. So if you'll just kind of look at this chart and kind of travel with me, I'll take you through each of these options. The first option is on-site learning. On-site learning is sometimes referred to as face-to-face, and it's exactly what you think it would be. It is where students are on-site learning at their school brick and mortar building. So learning that occurs at school. If you follow on down to the gold arrow, where it talks about closure due to COVID-19, students who choose on-site learning, if the school or the district is closed due to COVID-19, those students will pivot and all teaching and learning will be done remotely, okay? And so during remote instruction, students will receive both asynchronous and synchronous learning. And we've defined those words at the bottom. And so when you think about asynchronous learning, that's when learning is self-guided. So you might think about signing into a Google Classroom. There might be a short video from my teacher explaining an activity or giving a mini lesson, and then I might engage in that activity or post on something like a discussion board where my peers can see my thinking. That is asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning is when my teacher conducts a Zoom or a Google Meet, and my students and I are interacting in the same virtual space at the same time, where we can actually speak to each other and interact together. So that's what synchronous learning is. So just quickly, if on-site
learning is disrupted by school closure or district closure, we will then pivot to remote teaching and learning, okay? The next option is a blended option. For our definition in Springdale Public Schools of blended, that is learning that is a hybrid or a combination of on-site instruction and remote asynchronous learning. And I'm going to go much more in depth into blended in just a moment. But if I choose blended, that means on my on-site days, I'm receiving instruction at school from my teacher, and when I'm at home, my learning is self-guided. Okay, so it's my responsibility to log on and participate in whatever activities are loaded for me. The third, and it's the same if you follow that gold arrow, the big change if a closure was to occur during blended is that the learning becomes not only asynchronous, but synchronous. So not only am I participating in that self-guided piece, but now because our school cannot open, my teacher will also be conducting Zooms, Google Meet, etc. The third option is virtual, and we've discussed that before. That's where students are enrolled in an asynchronous and synchronous online learning model. And students who want to be 100% virtual, meaning they do not ever attend school physically on site, brick and mortar, those students enroll in via DTSOI. If there are any closures due to COVID-19, there is no change in this learning model. And we experienced that already when the pandemic occurred in mid-March. Those students that were already enrolled in via DTSOI carried on their learning as they had from day one. There was no disruption. Okay, so talking about choices. First and foremost, we want to provide a quality education for all students. That is our top priority. As a district, we encourage on-site learning for our students. We want our students with us, in front of us, as often as possible. We want to continue to build those relationships and interact with them and provide all supports necessary. However, we will provide flexibility for blended learning, as you just saw in the flow chart. For blended learning, we will offer 2 options. Option 1 is 3 days of on-site instruction and 2 days of remote. Option 2 would be 2 days of on-site instruction and 3 days remote. As I go a little bit deeper into this, we worked really hard to anticipate any questions that might come up about these options. However, when I get to the end of my part, before I switch to Ms. Fink, I'll make sure and stay up here and answer any additional questions that you have. So considerations for blended learning. If you were considering this option for your child, these are things you might want to consider. First of all, we request that a family choosing blended commit to one option in order to, first of all, ensure student safety. If we know that you want your child to be in class on site Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for example, and home on Tuesday and Thursday, if we're not seeing your child on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we know that we need to reach out to you and check on your child. And also, we know when our kids are supposed to be coming and going. Additionally, this will allow our teachers to effectively plan for personalized instruction. As Ms. Law said when she was up here, once teachers have an idea of what options students have chosen and whatever their blends may be, they can more effectively plan for that instruction. Also, it allows us to provide appropriate student supports and also to have adequate numbers for meal preparation, which is also very important. So, other major considerations for blended learning. I think it's very important to consider that the remote learning days, so again, let's use that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm at school, Tuesday, Thursday, I'm at home. If Tuesday and Thursday are my remote days, it's very important that the understanding is there that those are asynchronous or self-guided learning days, okay? So the students are responsible for accessing and actively engaging in the posted content
independently. Next, sorry. Students who choose blended learning and participate in sports or other electives that meet as a scheduled class on-site during the school day will only attend on-site as indicated by the chosen option. So if you have a question about that, I'm happy to give an example. Let's say that a student is in band fourth period, for example. I'm totally making this up. If I'm a blended student who has chosen Monday, Wednesday, Friday on-site, Tuesday, Thursday at home, I will only attend band fourth period in person on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, I will not be physically in that class. However, if you see the last bullet there, students may attend before school and after school practices, events, and activities on any day, regardless of the chosen model. So if I have band before school and fourth period, then I could come before school on every day if I wanted to. Thank you. It is really hard to talk in these without breathing and fogging up my glasses too. Okay, so what is our process? School surveys will be sent to allow families to indicate their chosen learning model. So they'll choose between on-site or blended. If the blended model is chosen, then families will indicate an on-site option for instruction, option 1 or option 2, which is what we talked about on the previous slides. Number 3, if circumstances necessitate a change to the chosen learning model, parents will be asked to simply communicate that change to the school. Preference would be that those changes occur at 9 weeks or semester. However, we understand completely the fluidity of our current situation and that there are going to be student needs and that we're going to have to be flexible in that. And so we simply say that if you want to make a choice, that you don't just do that on your own, but you notify the school, again, so that we can ensure the safety of our students and know when they're supposed to be with us and when they're going to be at home. So what are our next steps? We are working on educating all staff on these learning models, providing instructional resources and supports for our teachers, and establishing survey timelines for surveying our families. So we'll be meeting with school principals this week to determine when those surveys will go out. And then also collaborating with all of our district departments, ESL, special education, GT, all of our departments to ensure quality of student supports. And so just a couple of questions that we anticipate, and there are a million more, but one question might be, if I sign up for on-site learning and our family gets COVID-19 and we are quarantined for 3 to 4 weeks, does my child switch to via DTSOI? The answer to that would be no. We will support your child with remote learning access from his own school. And so one of the necessities, as you've heard in Arkansas Ready for Learning and you've heard about blended, is that we know that we're going to have students who go into quarantine or someone in their family is sick and they need to be home and they're going back and forth. And so for those on-site and blended students, we will support those children with remote learning from their zone school. Number 2, if I sign up for blended learning and after school starts, my child wants to attend all 5 days, can I switch to on-site? Yes, you can switch to on-site learning simply by contacting your child's school. And again, those are only 2 of several scenarios that we could experience, but I did just want to go ahead and anticipate that those questions will come up.
On that first question, if they're sick at home for 3 or 4 weeks, like that question said, that would be asynchronous learning for those 3 to 4 weeks?
Yes, predominantly. However, if we knew that a student was quarantined for that extent of amount of time, we would definitely have office hours where, whether it be a homeroom teacher or an advisor or an instructional facilitator or someone on our staff would be checking in to ensure that, if students had questions or anything like that, that we were meeting those needs. Yep. Any other questions?
Are there deadlines for families on all these different options?
So right now, mainly just for via DTSOI for the full virtual option, we are requesting that families notify us or declare intent to enroll by July 31st, simply for planning and staffing. However, we understand that after July 31st, and that was prior to, by the way, the delay of school, so that will most likely be extended.
Yeah.
But we do understand that people are not ready necessarily to make that decision right now, and so we anticipate, that we may need to push that out now that school has been pushed back. Originally, we were requesting July 31st for the via DTSOI.
Okay.
For the others, we'll be determining with principals when those surveys will go out. However, we will maintain flexibility that, even the starting of school, people are going to be experiencing it for the first time, and we understand that there will be some changes, and I think you used the word grace. There will be grace in everyone just trying to explore and see how this is all going to work.
So if you have a student that has picked on-site learning and will go Monday through Friday to their school, let's say they are sick for whatever reason for one day and they're out, can they do remote learning that day?
Absolutely.
Even though they're not in option 1 or 2?
Absolutely. If a student, was feeling sick but was okay to go ahead and access that remote learning at home, that's a great question. Basically, our premise was we need to be planning for any student to be remote at any time. So that is the base of the planning, and then the on-site pieces get added to, if that makes sense. And so we want to make sure that all students have access to quality curriculum and learning at all times. And so we'll really be working to make those opportunities available on our LMSs for any student at any time. Yes. Yes, sir.
I know there's rules like for how many days you're allowed to miss in a given year. With all this new technology and stuff, is anybody ever going to be absent again? I mean,
Yes,
how
actually.
does that work?
So let's say that I'm a blended student and I come on site Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Tuesday and Thursday are my remote days. On Wednesday, I don't come to school because I had an orthodontist appointment and my mouth hurts, so I go home after that. I would be counted absent because I've chosen Wednesday as my on-site day, and I would turn in my orthodontist note to the school, and it would be coded, just like it always has been.
What if you remotely work at home that day? Does that count as replacing the absence? Or?
Well, just like your orthodontist note would make your absence go away because it would be medical, so it wouldn't count against you.
Okay.
It would be the same on a remote learning day. We just wouldn't require that because you wouldn't be with us at that time.
Okay.
So essentially, all of the the compulsory attendance law is still there. The expectation for attending school has not changed, and those policies really will not change much. We will be coming out with some specific language regarding attendance, but in terms of wide-scale change, we don't anticipate a lot of change there.
When are we putting this on, like, specifically, when are we putting these slides for blended learning out?
Those will go out tomorrow when we launch our website.
Great.
Yes, and they're linked to the agenda for public agenda as well.
Okay, because that's the number one.
Yes, and we have several questions, and I hope that this information will begin to answer those, and any questions that it doesn't, we welcome, and we will answer those. Anything else for me?
Well, I'm glad you hit on the one about not, because that was an issue that I'd been asked and I didn't know the answer on if they did blended and they were in activities, which they would not go to those activities on.
Yeah, and really that is a there will be a lot of questions about that. And I think it's very hard for, like, I was an English teacher. It would be very hard for me to wrap my head around. Students would come 5 days a week for some classes, but not for others. And so I think by ensuring that any before-school practice, after-school practices, events, activities, ball games, even if my team has to leave at 12:15, we're going to have a meal, and then we're going to get on the bus and go to my game, a blended student would absolutely come to school, have a team meal, get on the bus, and go to a game with everyone else. It's just the day in and day out of attending those scheduled class periods and coming and going. It would be incredibly difficult to manage on a wide scale, I guess.
Which makes a lot of sense. However, we're also going to have parents realize that they've got to make that choice.
Sure.
I mean, because if their student's not at dance, football, basketball practice every day, how does that affect their position on?
Not favorably.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
Well, and Coach Stellick and I spent a lot of time discussing this and going through options. And, one of the things that I try to keep in mind is that many, many, many of our activities do practice before school and after school, and may use part. Let's say, for example, if a class is scheduled for first period and the bulk of the practice is before school, and then I'm given time to shower and change during first period, then they would just leave after practice, and while the other kids are showering, they would just go on home. Do you know what I'm saying? And so there will be time. I mean, we'll get a lot of variations there, but I do think that the main overall for us is that we just want to know when students are coming and when they're going, so we can keep them safe and we can keep those relationships between home and school open at all times.
No, I mean, I think that's very valid. I just think we're going to have to see a lot of coaches, be it your drama, debate, like you said, choir, band, and then our athletics, all decide. They're going to have to decide both as students and parents and coaches what that looks like. I mean,
Right.
There's not practices for a lot of those things before or after, but for the true athletics there are.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's just gonna, because the number of people that have reached out to me for blended all were in activities.
Sure.
And that was their question, and they were, so,
Right.
I mean, it's.
So
they're not
one
gonna be able
thing,
to do that.
so two things that I kind of continue to process is, we still don't really know what the nature of our activities will be. We don't
Exactly.
know the current status of any of our activities to truly probably go completely deep on that.
Exactly.
The other thing to consider is what activities can be accessed remotely and what activities can't be for a blended student. And so, for example, if you were looking at debate, there are a lot of things that you can do for debate on a remote day, even in preparation for a competition, that are different maybe than some other type of activity. And again, I'm just randomly pulling
No,
up
and I
here.
agree, and I mean,
Yeah.
I think your comment about saying the safety of the students and knowing who's on campus when and so forth, and limiting the access is the number one thing. I just think that throws another thing in that we need to think about.
Sure, and again, those are all considerations, and, I think as we began to process what the Arkansas Ready for Learning model would look like in our district, Dr. Cleveland came to us and he said, in this time, we have to provide the maximum amount of options and flexibilities to meet the needs of our families at this time. And so we just, in this presentation, want to make sure that we're putting out any considerations that we can possibly think of for our families to process through as they're looking to make these decisions. And we certainly welcome questions, and I can promise you that we have not thought of everything. We don't really even know what to anticipate in terms of these activities and when they'll be taking place, and, there are so many unknowns, but we know that our students and our families and their safety are the forefront of this, and us being able to provide flexibility to meet their needs during this time. Are there any other questions for
I
me?
just have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So is the co-task committee, like, are we done meeting? Everything will be done via email now, or?
Yep, okay. Anything else for me? If not, I will have Ms. Fink come forward, and thank you very much for your time.
Well, good evening. I'm here to kind of tell you the how we are going to accomplish this in our school district and the supports that we're putting in place for our teachers, because we know that this is going to be a monumental task for them next year, and we want them to be as prepared for this blended option as we can get them ready for. So Dr. Smith talked about a guaranteed Bible curriculum, and when Dr. Cleveland came to us with this idea about a blended model, we knew that we needed to come up with a guaranteed and viable remote curriculum. So we sat down and we started talking about what this could look like. And so we landed on our most valuable resources in our district are our teachers. And so we sent them a survey asking them to volunteer their time, because we know a lot of teachers are just bored right now, just looking for something to do because they've been quarantined for so long, and asked them to come alongside of us and help us write some remote curriculum. So you can tell from this slide we had an overwhelming response of people that wanted to help be involved. So we had a group of 140 teachers plus instructional specialists from elementary, secondary, some of our support staff. Paul Miller was part of this conversation. Just lots of people came together to provide resources and supports for our teachers. So our process for getting this accomplished, Dr. Cleveland, when he came to us and talked to us about the blended model, our heads just started rolling. At first it was like, ugh! And then once we really sat and we thought and we started processing through this, we realized what an awesome opportunity we had ahead of us to kind of change what education will look like in the future of our district. So we began by discussing what blended learning would look like, the model that Ms. Tischer shared with you in her presentation. And we began to develop this vision for what remote learning could look like. So we began by looking at the research. What did the research say about how students remote learned best, and what strategies do we need to incorporate into our lesson plans to ensure that our students were actively engaged at all times. We wanted all of our remote lessons to be accessible in a central location so that teachers had access to them. We didn't want teachers to feel like they had to recreate the wheel every time they lesson planned. If I'm a teacher at Turnbow and I've created a lesson and it's in a central location, then a teacher at Lee Elementary could go in and borrow that lesson and load it into their learning management system with the ability to tweak it to meet their students' needs. And we also wanted to incorporate some innovative technology tools into these lessons so that our students could be actively engaged. So we really began taking a close look at Screencastify, Edpuzzle, Padlet, and a whole variety of other educational tools that we could possibly use in developing these remote lessons. So once we had this vision started, we met with our instructional specialists and we began to share the vision with them. And then they helped us further develop this vision for remote learning. They quickly got on board with us. They are an amazing group of people that can really move heaven and earth when you need them to. And they developed a professional development module for our teachers to engage in to learn about remote lesson planning. Through that professional development model, they were able to model some of these technology tools that we envisioned would be inside of our remote lesson plans. And they also created sample remote lessons that they could share with teachers, so there would be a model for what this could look like. So they delivered the professional development to the large group of teacher and instructional facilitators, who then began to look at our current curriculum, and they began to identify essential learning standards in the curriculum. And they began to kind of peel away things in our curriculum that, although important,
maybe not essential in this new landscape that we're having to teach in. And then they began to play around with these tech tools, and they started designing remote lessons that we can house in our central location. The cool thing about the teachers in Springdale is that we've got the best, I think, anywhere. I would put our teachers up against any teacher in the nation, or any teachers in the nation, and we know that, we could really use our teachers to help build the capacity of others. And so we are going to invite teachers and instructional facilitators to attend our principals back to school professional development and lead this professional development with our building administrators, with our instructional facilitators, and our teachers. And those group of people will actually go through the process of creating a remote lesson. So they'll have the experience, they'll have the interaction with it, they will have access to some of these technology tools that we're going to be integrating into our remote lessons. And then from there, the building administrators, instructional facilitators, and classroom teacher representatives will then be the point of contact in the building to carry this forward in our building so that teachers can get experience designing lesson plans. So when we started having this vision for what remote learning could look like, we wanted to put a tool into the hands of our teachers so that all of our remote lessons would be created in a way that anybody could access them. So we needed to streamline the process for how we created our lessons. And so we created this remote lesson planning checklist or a template, and it kind of just lays out what's expected to be in a remote lesson. For instance, we want to make sure that all of our remote lessons, the videos that are embedded in our remote lessons are no longer than 10 minutes. And the last thing we want to do is have a kid on a computer watching a lecture for 30 minutes, and this goes from K-12. We wanted to ensure that students were explicitly told what their learning purpose was, so there was no question as to why they were engaging in a lesson. And then in addition to all of that, we gave some suggestions for if we were in a synchronous learning time, we gave suggestions for what kind of conferring could take place, what kind of small groups could we do. And then we also gave suggestions for different kinds of assessments and independent activities that could be included in these remote learning lessons. So I wanted to give you an example of a model lesson that Julie Crane, she is our science TOSA, did for life cycles, and this is a third grade sample. So here in just a minute, I'm going to play this video, and I just want you to really think about all that has gone into creating this video. There's a lot that we're going to be asking, a lot that teachers can do to make this very engaging for their students. But we know that teachers don't innately know how to use some of these tech tools, and so I know Ms. Cook has been very concerned about professional development and what that's going to look like for teachers, and I can assure you that it's going to be different than what it's ever looked before. We're being very purposeful in the things that we're doing with our teachers this year and giving them a lot of choice so they can personalize their learning. We've talked a lot about personalization of student learning in our district, but we know now is more important than ever that we're personalizing the learning of our teachers as well. And so we have teachers that are going to be masterful at Screencastify, and they may choose not to do that professional development module, but somebody may need to do Screencastify and may choose that to do as well. So I'm just going to play this video for you.
Hey there, scientists. I want to ask you a question. Do you think this basketball is living or non-living? What about this plant? Is it living or non-living? How do you know? Click on the link to the Padlet below and tell me if you think these two objects are living or non-living.
Okay, so you can see that was just a quick little video to kind of get kids hooked in. She was giving a step for the learning that they were going to do in the lesson. And then in step 2, if I was able to click on that, Padlet is a technology tool that teachers can use for assessment. And so students could click there, go into Padlet, and I think the Padlet asks, what is living, what's non-living, how do you know? And so that kind of gives teachers an understanding of what students know going into the lesson. So day 2, she has another video. She actually brings in a live lizard. I was kind of blown away by that, because I would never hold a live lizard in my hand. But she has a live lizard, and she has a real life example of what a living organism is, and does a very good direct explanation and defines living organisms. I'm not going to put that.
Learning goal. We will learn about life cycles by watching videos, through reading and discussion, and by comparing the life cycles of plants and animals in our writing.
So Julie has used another tool to do a voiceover in her Google slide deck that she's created. This allows our students who are ESL learners and our special education students to have access to the curriculum if they're asynchronously learning from home. So that's just one way that we're scaffolding these lessons for all of our students. And again, here's another video opportunity. She's got 2 videos that she's pulled off of YouTube, and she has put these videos in, and then there's an activity that's linked to the videos. Here, she's having students choose articles to read, and then she's telling them what they will be doing with what they read the next day. They're going to share what they've learned with their classmates. And that's where they're showing what they've learned to their classmates. And then I think this is also really important too, are the extensions that we are putting into these lessons for our gifted and talented students, or maybe a student who's an expert on life cycles already. We wanted to provide our students extension opportunities within the remote lessons to extend their knowledge and what they're learning.
Learning goal.
Sorry. And then she closes with, did we meet the
Learning goal.
So she is, having students assess, did we do what we set out to do? So before I take questions, I do want to give a shameless shout out, actually a plea for any teachers who are listening to this or watching this right now. We need your help. If you want to come help us write remote curriculum, we would love to meet with you and have you be part of our process. So contact me, Ms. Tischer, or one of your instructional specialists to get connected. So what questions do you guys have for me about our remote learning process?
A couple of the things that I'm getting as we sit here texting is, one is why we aren't just Zooming. I mean, why we're not opening our classes up to video or to Zoom, or when the students are at home, why they can't. Do you mind explaining the reasoning why we're doing? I mean, the reason I would think is because so that they can do it at their flexibility and not at a certain time. Should they be sick, or should they be taking care of someone else, or should a million other reasons. But is there something on that line that you want to explain?
Sure. So we talk about anytime, any place learning, and anytime, any place learning can only occur if it's asynchronous. And so if it's a synchronous experience, and let's just pretend that I have 4 children in my home. All of my children will have devices now, which they didn't back from March to May maybe if they were elementary, but now they will. But my internet connection will not support 4 devices going on at the same time. So if all 4 of my children's teachers are Zooming them at the same time, as a parent, I may have to make a choice of who's going to get to Zoom and who's not. And so really, synchronous learning has its place, and it's good and it's beneficial. But it's not always feasible when you're talking about families who have multiple children that are having to access their internet. In addition to that, we also know that we have students that don't have internet in their home, and I know the district is working on ways to mitigate that. But we are working on ways that students can connect and dump information into their devices and go home and work asynchronously. But if I don't have internet connection, I can't synchronously work with my teacher if my parents aren't home to make sure I can get somewhere to be connected.
It's also about student support and teacher support. So if all learners have access to this remote lesson, whether they're at home or remote or on site, these lessons are layered with very specific supports. And if I'm just recording my lesson while I'm teaching it, I might not be meeting the support needs of the students who are watching. And then also, it would be incredibly difficult for a teacher to
Right.
worlds. So we're asking teachers to live in one world, where they, as they're planning their lessons, they plan each lesson this way, and then they use it for their on-site students and their remote students, rather than being two teachers in two different worlds and trying to juggle that. That is just simply not fair for us to ask the teachers. We felt like, and so that was our rationale.
Yeah, those are both great explanations, and I think really.
Yeah, we really want teachers just to see this as one job. I've got one lesson to prepare for this subject. I'm going to deliver it here, and I'm going to push it into this learning management system.
I know another question that parents had asked her at the committee meeting was, how are we going to educate some of our families on how to do remote learning?
Yes, so we know, and we learned a lot from AMI days, and so we are actually in the process of identifying different ways that we can push information out to families that might need that information. We are going to be working with principals, with possibly some of our East students, to develop how-to videos, just short little how-to videos so that we can push out to parents so they can learn how to access Seesaw or how to help their students in Google Classroom. So there's the possibility of the videos that we could create is really kind of exciting and probably needed to happen a long time ago, but we've never really had a need to until now. And so really working with principals and East teachers and East students and trying to figure out ways that how we can do that and accomplish that in a way that would be helpful for parents.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was just one of many amazing lessons that are being created. And if you actually think about being in a classroom and seeing that lesson, if you were a kid, that would be pretty amazing. And you're actually getting to engage with the other students and this activity all at once. So just to reiterate, our goal is to not to have two different things happening, but really start creating these amazing lessons that can be done in class or remote. So I mentioned that there was 7 actions, and most of what's been discussed are the next few, so I'll go through these very quickly. But the second action that is required that we post by September 1st is, how will we address unfinished learning? So just quickly, 25% of our students will be transitioning to a new building next year, if not more. So if you think about all of our transitions. So students are going to be not only going into a new building, but there's going to be new procedures. So we want to make sure they feel as comfortable as possible starting the new year. So of course, PPE, etiquette, and social distancing and new safety requirements, that's going to be important for teachers to provide to students and kind of show them what it's going to look like. They're going to have new procedures, so they're going to have to be reviewing that. New learning processes, because this is a whole new way. But you guys, I'm telling you, that lesson and the ones that we are seeing, they're phenomenal and they're very exciting. And so we know not only are teachers getting excited about all these new tools, but students are going to be really excited about it as well. We did a survey early in May, and one of the things that teachers and parents said was that the social and emotional support of our kids was critical. And so we're building some of that into our PD days, and we're also providing some supports through the website that we're going to push out. Technology, I know that's a big thing right now. We're going to use technology use. Some of our younger kids have never taken these devices home, so we know we're going to have to provide support with them. What does that look like? How do we take care of our equipment? And then, of course, we're also going to have to talk about pivoting. But when we specifically talk about the standards that may or may not have been addressed in May, keep in mind that most of the teachers try to get through the materials prior to assessment, which is exactly where we were. So what we did is we identified the essential standards by actually every single building gave us feedback on these standards that they thought may have been missed. We did a crosswalk because Desi actually put one out, and it was called their playbook. We did a crosswalk with those. That information, we are not going to front load kids at the beginning of the year. That's not a good way to teach those essential standards. Our goal is to identify those and actually put them throughout the year where they're needed. And so we'll be providing that additional support before the content is taught in a certain place throughout the year. And of course, we do the Plan, Do, Check, Act model. And so how are we going to do this? Well, we've identified it. We know we're going to scaffold that information early on. We know we're going to use the MAP assessment to help us figure out our students that are needing additional support. We'll be looking through PLCs to figure out how to provide that support. We'll also be using the ACT interim assessment, which we've done, and none of those are new for teachers. They're very familiar with them. And of course, just that Plan, Do, Check, Act to help support students. Action number 3, we have to identify a learning management system. Springdale's actually going to have 3 learning management systems. Seesaw will be used for pre-K through 2nd grade. 3 through 12 will be Google Classroom. And a lot of the secondary teachers are already using Google Classroom. There's quite a few using Seesaw early on in the grade, so we've landed on those 2. Don Tyson School of Innovation has been using Schoology. We'll continue with Schoology. There is some conversations about whether we're going to actually do Seesaw at the youngest grades at Don Tyson for the innovative program there. But these are our 3 platforms. A lot of teachers know how to use them. There are some that don't. So what have we done to start providing support for those? So one thing we have been sending out, and I think I've included you on them, is a weekly curriculum and instruction. So we announced which one the learning platforms were. We pushed those out a couple weeks ago. We gave them some sites that they could go to start doing some research. We know not all teachers read their emails during the summer, and so we will provide back to school personalized instruction on those 9 days that we have coming back. We will also identify people in the building to give additional supports to teachers if they need them. Our idea is we don't want to give them information. We want to give them a little snippet of information and then have them actually use it. You learn best when you use it, and that's our goal, is to say, here's a tool, try to create this, give them time. They're going to be creating lessons, collaborating, coming back. And then our goal is also to divide and conquer. So if something is happening at, Shaw, then we can turn around and have another group doing something at Elmdale, and together we can create this great set of curriculum. Number 5 was training for the delivery of instruction. I think Ms. Fink has done a great job explaining the steps that we have gone through to start doing that. We always have a back-to-school meeting with principals, so we will have principals in there, and they don't know this yet, so I might be letting them know a little early, but they will be actually providing support to their teachers, and we're going to be working with them, and they're going to be creating lessons themselves with all these tools. If you'll notice the example that Ms. Fink gave, there was probably about 4 different technology tools used in that specific example, and teachers need to be familiar with those, feel comfortable with them, and pick which ones they enjoy most using and which ones they find most value. So that's what we want to give them time to do. Number 6, how do we provide supports for parents? I think these are some really good questions. We know that parents, we actually just got a recent survey that was sent to us, but we know that they're going to need support with technology. We know that. Mr. Miller and his team has done an amazing job. I just have to give him kudos over and over and over and over again, because he's helped with this process. But we will kind of go through these steps where parents will look at their AUA. And just as a kind of stepping back a little bit, Registration Gateway is what we'll be using for it's called Back to School registration. It will be pushed out in a couple weeks, and in there is the AUA. That will be in there as well. But students will get either iPads or Chromebooks, and there will be some students maybe with special needs that need a different device. We'll also provide that device if they need it. And so in support of the parents, we know that we're going to look at how do we get Wi-Fi to all of our students. That's critical. And so Mr. Miller and his team has already started putting additional locations in every school that he'll identify that will push the Wi-Fi out into the parking lots so that students can come up and access them when needed. He's also been working with the city diligently trying to figure out how do we coordinate the spaces within the city so that they can, he's working with the city to use their locations. So we're coordinating with that. We're also looking at those that are really far out, remote, how do we get them some internet? So looking at possibly some hotspots or some supports that he's got going on with some of our local industries. So a lot of stuff is going into play. We will hopefully get that all in a form that parents can see, okay, this one's going to be best for me. So those are some options that we're working on. We also know that there's not one way to reach parents. We found this out, that teachers were trying to find every single possible way to communicate with parents. So of course these, I'm not going to read through them, but this is just a little bit. But we know our special populations need additional support, and so Ms. Brado, she's just stepped into her position, and she's getting things translated left and right, trying to help us communicate with all of our populations that need additional support. So that's something that we're working on, and we're always trying to get better at that. Videos will be created to help support families, so that'll make it easier. We've talked about how do we translate that, how do we get those taken care of in multiple languages, and so we're working on that as well. And the last one is to provide a written communication plan. We're in the process of doing this, trying to figure out how do we get all this information out. If you'll notice, I just kind of put 3 phases together. The June one, we kind of did a few announcements about, hey, by the way, we have a virtual academy, and we started the Wear Because You Care. I think that actually came out of a conversation with Ms. Cook about when we talk about masks, it really is because we care about the individuals that are students and that work within our community. So that's where the campaign started. And then we started sending some additional reopening, updating supply lists and so forth. And then in August, of course, we'll have a little bit more information, and we'll be able to provide ongoing support for families as they know more. I did want to mention, I want to thank everybody that's listening for their help in creating this. We will launch it tomorrow morning on our district website. It has everything that's been discussed tonight. It has questions and answers that we've already sent out, but it also has a place for individuals if they want to submit a question. We will try to get that answered for them. There's a place for definitions. The flow chart that you addressed is in the red section. There's back to school information. Please, if you open up this, there might be a little under construction. It means we're still learning and we're still trying to build it, because as you know, information changes daily, so we're having to address that. Some technology tools. Teachers, if you are out there, please go to this technology site. These are like the most amazing tools. We're sharing them in a weekly with them, but they're pretty awesome, so I think they'll like those. The programs, let me just tell you, the individuals that helped create these programs with Mr. Donnell, we had a lot of help from special ed and from ESL. They did an amazing job putting together information to help support families. Like for instance, if a student is dyslexic, then they will be able to look at this site and kind of see the information and what we're doing to help support them. So all those tools. There is a light blue section on the bottom for teachers. We wanted it to be as transparent as possible so parents can actually access this information. But there are teaching tools under here. Teaching and Learning has some great tools. It also has our back to school PD calendar. So anybody listening and wanting to know what we're putting together right now, we've kind of summarized it and got everything ready based on the new changes that Jill brought forward. We had to change this schedule. And so you'll be able to see what the plan is for PD for you, and then also a deeper dive into the professional development days. We are still working on these 2 buttons, but we're getting more clarity as we go. So there's some supporting documents just in case anybody wants to read all the different stuff coming out from CDC and DESE and all that stuff. It's on the bottom, but we sent this out to a number of people getting support and excellent feedback from different people. We went in and we made the changes and we updated the suggestions, and so we're very happy. But Missy has done an excellent job, and she will be posting the button on the front side, the front of our district webpage. So anybody, feel free to go there, and if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to send us an email or go into the question and answer section and pose a question. Mr. Donnell is on that one, getting ready to help us answer all those questions as well. So anyway, I know that it seemed kind of lengthy, but I think there was some very important information that teachers wanted to know, and I know the board has been getting a lot of questions on. So, are there any questions?
Thank you.
I know that the curriculum instruction team, I know Dr. Cleveland and everybody else from central office really appreciate the support that you have given us. and fielding a lot of questions and providing us some information to help us make the best decisions for our district. So thank you.
Well, thank you, all of you and the 140-plus teachers who have volunteered. That's really amazing.
Shannon, are you next? It's okay.
Lenny there.
Really fun, super fast announcements that I linked to your agenda. First, I wanted to announce the winners of the Governor's All-State Computer Science Coding Competition. And that was a team of students from Don Tyson School of Innovation. So they won the state competition, and there were 135 teams from across the state that competed, and the winning team was made up of Bryant Cassidy, Ben Easterling, and Lucas Keller, and they each will receive 529 College Savings Plan scholarships totaling $2,000 each. And so that was a huge honor for those students, so we'll give them a round of applause. In addition to the individual scholarships, the schools that sponsored the winning teams will each be awarded $10,000, $6,000 or $4,000 to support their computer science programs. And so DTSOI will receive a $10,000 award for sponsoring the winning team. So that's also
another
huge.
step to that, or is that it? And is there national or regional, or is that?
This is an initiative sponsored by Governor Hutchinson.
Okay.
And so that's the pinnacle award for this particular competition, yes. Additionally, the Great Arkansas History Video Game Coding Competition was held this spring. And let's see, I have the number of teams on here too. So this competition was open to all Arkansas students in grades 4 through 8. And what they did was emphasize storytelling, state history, and coding. And they designed video games for that. And the Hellstern Middle School team won that competition. And each of those students received a $1,000 award. And the school received an award for $2,500. And so they won the state competition for that. And so we're very excited for them as well. Okay, and then the next announcement that I have. So each year there is a challenge sponsored by Toyota. It is called the Toyota Teen Drive 365 Video Challenge. And students can enter this competition, and basically they submit videos to make teens aware of the dangers of distracted driving. And this is a national competition. This year there were over 1,000 submissions, and the team from Harbor High School placed second in the nation. And those students were Giselle Cervantes and Raquel Washburn. They won second place nationally and received a $10,000 award for that achievement. Yep. And if you go to the link, the Teen Drive 365 link, you can actually see their video. It's posted on the national website as highlighting them as winners. And so we're very proud of all of those teams. And that concludes my portion of the agenda. Thank you.
I watched it. It was very good.
It was very good.
Cry.
Yes. Thank you.
Melissa, I think you're next.
It says possible.
It was,
Oh.
I'm sorry, I thought it had been deleted. We
Oh.
are waiting an announcement for a very big grant from
Okay.
the district.
Yep.
that
Great.
we, we'll have it hopefully next time.
Sounds good.
Good evening, Board. I have 3 items in my section of the agenda. The first is the monthly request for out-of-district transfers.
You'll see quite a list included in your packet. That's relatively normal at this time of the year. Of those, there are a number of students that are requesting to transfer into the district. I counted 5 from Huntsville, 3 from Rogers, 4 from Fayetteville, and 1 from Bentonville. There is also a student requesting to transfer out of the district to Fayetteville. This was probably the most unique request I've ever had. This family has lived in the same house for a number of years. The child attended elementary school in Fayetteville, and for a personal family reason, they pulled the child out of school to homeschool for a semester last year, pre-COVID actually. When they went back to try to re-enroll the child, still living at the same house, Fayetteville said, wait, you're not zoned for Fayetteville, you're zoned for Springdale. And it's true, they are zoned for Springdale, but for whatever reason, Fayetteville didn't realize, we didn't know. And so when I brought that request forward to Dr. Cleveland, he said, yes, let's put it in front of the board and let them decide. But a very odd situation, but that is the request for the student wanting to transfer to Fayetteville. They've actually always been a Fayetteville student. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd ask that you approve the out-of-district transfers.
Make a motion to approve the out-of-district transfers.
I have a motion from Mr. Emerson, a second from Mr. Ramos to approve the out-of-district transfers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The second item in my section is a report that I give every year at the July meeting. It is a list of the different types of transfers in and out. So the first tab in that document, you'll see the total number of school choice transfers that we received. Then the second tab is the district transfers over the prior year. And then there's a total tab. So you're able to get an idea as you see these transfers month after month, what kind of the final total is. In full disclosure, the school choice transfers are the applications that came in this May 1st for the next school year. And then the district transfers are looking back on the prior school year. So it's not a complete apples to apples comparison, but it gives you the general temperature of transfers in and out. I would like for you to note that on the combined totals, there are 192 students that are incoming through one of these transfer options and 54 outgoing. In prior years, we have seen on that total sheet really an even number, and this year there's a substantially large number on students transferring into Springdale. So I thought that was an interesting trend and something that we haven't seen in prior years' reports. I don't need any action on this item, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, if there are no questions, my final item is more of just a discussion item. One of the things that Dr. Cleveland asked me to talk with you about is the idea of placing a consent agenda portion on your monthly agendas. If some of you have served on other boards in different capacities, you may have seen this as an option in board meetings. Basically what a consent agenda is one agenda item that may have numerous pieces of agenda items that would need a motion and a vote, but those agenda items are ones that usually don't require any questions or discussion. For example, your minutes every month that you pass, my out-of-district transfers that are usually a relatively routine agenda item, and even most months of Mr. Hayes' financial statements. Those are some items that could be placed on a consent agenda. They would be presented as consent agenda. Dr. Cleveland would do that. If you had any questions or needed to pull any of those individual items off, you could do that. But it's just a way to really start processing things that are relatively routine. So you don't have to have any action or do anything with this item now, but it's something that you may want to think about as moving agendas efficiently. So think about it, give Dr. Cleveland feedback, and if that's something that you want to try, we can try it, and it's obviously something that we can pull back if you try and you don't like it. One thing we've definitely learned through the COVID pandemic is you can try things and pull them back if they don't work. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Cleveland. This month I only have the financials to present to you. I put out a letter to Dr. Cleveland, which I hope that y'all all had a chance to read, that kind of summarized the year for us. Of course, student growth was something I don't budget, so I mean that's a positive direction for us. The property tax collections, however, went the other way, as we've discussed for the last several months. Just so that y'all know, last year in the month of July, we received $1.5 million from Washington County, and this year, just in the last few days, we received over $3 million. So that just illustrates the timing difference that we've been talking about all this time. So you have the financials for the month of June in front of you. We were able to make a building fund transfer. So I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Anyone have any?
I'll make a motion to approve the financials as presented then.
There's a motion by Mr. Hutchinson, a second by Mrs. Creek to approve the June financial statements. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I just have to say that in a time with so much unknown and uncertainty, it's very settling for me as a teacher to be here with you all tonight, just to be in a room with people with so much positivity and who really care about our students and our staff in Springdale. SEA has been working really hard this summer. I know every year teachers use their summers to reflect and prepare for the upcoming year, and this one has been no different. We've been busy supporting students and families in our district who have been directly affected by COVID-19. We've had some families reach out to us, but we've also donated to Dawn DeShazo. I don't know if you guys know her, but she has been doing phenomenal work to support our families in so many ways. She's provided them with meals, helped them with their rent and utilities, and we have been happy to help her a little bit in providing for them. We've also been working hard to answer questions about the start of the school year, and that would not be possible without the help of Dr. Cleveland and his team. He has been so great to work with us, and he's always so prompt in responding and answering to our questions, and most importantly, to listening to our ideas. It's comforting to know that he and his team truly have the safety of our students and the staff at the forefront of their planning, and I always appreciate their willingness to receive and consider input from teachers. On that note, I want to speak on behalf of the association and thank you all so much for approving the face covering policy tonight. I know it's become a heated topic in our community, in our country, and I just really appreciate so much you showing how much you care for our staff and for our students. That's been one of the greatest concerns that teachers have shared with me, and I know that Dr. Cleveland and I have talked about that as well, so thank you. We know that we're the ones who are going to be on the front lines, and many of us are anxious to return. So you guys doing that just provides one more safety net for us. But it also provides a safety net for our community, because we know that our students come to school and they take home everything with them. So that's doing a big part in keeping our community safe too. So thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. And one more thing, since October, I have been telling you guys that we have been working really hard to find our new UniServe director, and we finally have her. She is here tonight. Renee Johnson is here with me, and she'll be working with us, and I know that she's excited to be in Springdale and looks forward to meeting you guys later. So thank you very much for your dedication and just for caring for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to adjourn for executive session to discuss personnel issues. We didn't. Comments, do we have any?
I don't see any.
Thought I had everybody.
They're all patriots.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have no
You
idea.
didn't sign an agreement.
Rachel's like, where do you get all these iPads? I'm like,
Kids are
"Well,
playing video games."
districts. She's like, how do you pull that off?
We won't tell you.
pretty cool, isn't it?
We're 6 feet away.
That's good.
We're 6 feet away, you're fine. Oh, wait, you're blinded.
If he says that, I'm not gonna look at that, so give him a card.
Okay, are we,
He says that.
is everybody,
Oh, there he is. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, is Jared here?
I showed up.
It's a
for
good time to be here.
Yes, sir. I'm excited about it.
Well, I can tell you, they all about have that.
Hey, hey, you wanna go home?
and we call the meeting back to order.
I would like to make a motion to accept Dr. Cleveland's drafted contract.
I would second that.
A motion from Mr. Emerson
Whatever his name is.
and a second from Mr. Hutchinson to accept Dr. Cleveland's draft contract. All of those in favor?
Yes, please.
Aye. All those opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Finally.